Ugh, third try at this video. I can't believe I just hit the button for no good reason. And I don't feel like tying these videos together, so fuck it. Yeah, the other one I did it on a camera, didn't have sound. Ugh, just really. Anyway, third try.
Well, I'm just going to make some summary statements about antinatalism.
Yeah, well, no, you're not. You're not going to make some summary statements about antinatalism. You're just going to make statements about antinatalists, and yeah, you're just not going to answer the basic questions, which are, what in our origins can we use to defend our existence, and what in our accomplishments, or our potential accomplishment, can we use to defend our existence? We create need. That's a fact. Okay, a living thing creates need. He now becomes in need of comfort, and at best, if we're lucky, we comfort someone, but the point is we leave a ton of people uncomforted and suffering, misery. This is the price we pay for it. What is the accomplishment beyond satisfying need that didn't need to exist? Your desire to climb a mountain doesn't need to exist, so satisfying it can't really be an accomplishment capable of compensating for somebody else's misery.
Derived Energies made another reply to me, and I tried to talk to Gary tonight. God, he lost his mind.
Yeah, whatever. No, I've lost my patience. This is just silly. This is as silly as arguing with, religion. I mean, you know, it is just almost laughable that we have to waste our time arguing with people who are proposing a 2,000-year-old theory of life that is worse than astrology. I mean, it's more nonsensical. It's more outrageous and extravagant and bizarre. You know, there's this controller in the sky, and he's making deals with us, but it's all crooked and dishonest, and it's all veiled, and all, you know, what the fuck? All these games that are being played? Oh, do you measure up to live in your, you know, perfect heaven of what? No memories? Anyway, yeah, I don't even get into it, but I mean, well, why do we have to waste time with this nonsense? And part of the nonsense here is that yeah, this isn't that complicated. We have origins and we have future accomplishment. That there's and so in those two things, where are you going to find justification? Our origins are shit. It's a DNA molecule reproducing. The history of 2 billion years of carnage is undeniable. Horrific misery endured. The price has been paid. Okay, so that's already in the past. So let's even just write that off, because we can't undo it. Yeah, let's just say we were rapists in the past. Well, we're talking about the future. What do we do with the future? What is it that we're going to accomplish? What is the big accomplishment sitting out there? Oh yeah, the satisfaction of desire. And what is desire? Addiction. And that's the part you haven't fixed yet. You haven't undone yet. You haven't explained how desire isn't just arbitrary, contrived addiction. It's just an attachment that made out of nothing, made out of no real representation of value, just a perception of value. And you can't pay for anything with that fool's gold.
And, you know, just to summarize antinatalism, it's, you know, of course there's a spectrum of different kind of people that believe it. But on the whole, I find it very condescending. You know, it's just like...
Yeah, so you're being condescending in ridiculing the condescending, so that doesn't really go anywhere. But there's hypocrisy in the claims of hypocrisy. So this is just, you know, you're just going to argue personality. You're not going to argue logic or some sort of rational argument explaining value and explaining how because you are addicted, you know what heroin is, you know it's valuable, and you can tell other people that they're going to value it. You know, that's just bullshit. And that you can account in your life. Your life is enough value and accomplishment in it to justify all the other lives of misery that you wouldn't live.
These people think that they're off the hook for the crime, their benefit, that they take it from the crimes of the world, because they have these opinions like this. Doesn't get you off the hook.
Yeah, well, that's a cute little thing. Yeah, so instead of attacking the argument, just attack motives or something and contrive this nonsense that because people look at the world, look at circumstances, and find them insufferable, just unacceptable, not capable of suffering them, not capable of saying this is okay, because they use their intelligence to understand some portion of the magnitude of the horror that goes on. I mean, I watched a little nature program the other day, and yeah, it's going to run in my head for a while. And it's one tiny speck of what has gone on for 2 billion years. Sentient life cannibalizing sentient life for a bucket of calories. So its DNA can win some sort of king of the DNA contest. So we can be the best bacteria. I mean, it is that simple. It is that crude. And unless you do it a lot better than this, there's no way you can justify all that suffering.
You know, and just very insulting about how you don't even care and stuff. Now, Derived Energy has been very careful to be Mr. Uber polite, but then he still steps in there like he's going to be offended if I'm cussing at some guy that's insulting me and saying I'm full of shit. You know, literally. That kind of language. Then
Yeah, this really isn't about the subject, is it? No, it isn't.
Fine, kind. He's going to go, oh, well, our position, you shouldn't be so rude and characterize our position. Well, I am going to characterize your position.
Right, so if I characterize your position as intellectually dishonest, as bullshit skepticism, the most tear-apartable presumption that exists in human understanding is this presumption that life is a bogus little happy friendly yellow-colored word, yellow and green, with little daisies popping out of it. That's not what life is doing, okay? It's not what it's been doing for billions of years. What it's been doing is engineering great white sharks' teeth and other mechanisms of carnage and slaughter. That's what it builds little slaughtering machines. And that's what the world is covered with, okay? We're all food, and we all eat. And it's an insidious game of who can get the most efficient tools for ripping the calories out of somebody else's, that somebody else possesses, something else possesses. And, yeah, I mean, so why not some skepticism pointed towards that word life, pointed towards what exactly is going on here, and for what purpose, for what accomplishment. Again, what accomplishment, except satisfying half the mess you make in your life, half the need you create, you satisfy, and then you're going to give yourself a trophy for that, while you leave the other half of the spilt milk on the floor, and say, that's for the next generation to clean up.
I think it's a position of people that have privilege and are bored with life. And, you know, the pain hurts so much because they're so sensitive.
Yeah, so, no, you're not being patronizing or condescending in that kind of attitude. Yeah, again, but to a sense, it's true. I mean, over time, I have become hypersensitive because, you know, by comparison to the average person, because, yes, more of my neural energy has been involving itself in imagining circumstances and imagining being in those circumstances and not finding them at all pleasant, being quite horrified. And it's bludgeoned me. Yes, that's true. And so, yeah. So is there some other argument here, though? Is that somehow an invalid perception? Are you really going to argue that somebody can be too aware of the suffering? I mean, 2 billion years of it? I don't think anybody can even contemplate. They can't even fit it in their brain. And yet you're going to make some sort of accusation that there's such a thing as too sensitive? No, I think there's such a thing as too insensitive. And I think most of the human race has that problem. And I think it's because of their basic nature, which is, yeah, me, period. It's about me. It's not about you. It's not about them. It's not about it. It's about me. And that just doesn't work as a philosophy.
That's why. And you always want to go other people, or I know pain, I had to watch this person die, or other people could be dying in this situation. It's like you're using other people's suffering as your reason to be miserable.
What a cute, again, another, just a perversion, right? So if you're at all empathetic, and if it all tears at you, and tears the all value that you're able to see away, from you, that somehow you're being laughably manipulative of somebody else's pain. It's that you want to see it. It's not that it exists and it gets in your way, and it's not something you want to. You can't justifiably cover up. You have to force it to. It has to have its right space. It has to be fairly seen. And you're sort of implying that there's this huge majority out there that's doing the unfair. Put the suffering where we can see it. And it isn't the skeptic would be. You should be skeptical of that. Don't be skeptical of the rest of the human race that seems able to cover up everything. They seem perfectly capable of out of sighting and out of minding, and just completely ignoring even fundamental biology. They will make distinctions between pig and dog. They'll do silly things like that, but the skeptic doesn't get on their ass for that. No, he's going to get on people's ass because they're allowing an understanding of somebody else's pain to get to bother them, to actually remain for the echo to stay inside their neurology, and to have a little bit of a peep of a scream now and then.
And just like they're the only ones that care about the world because they don't even have to look into the details. The way I see it.
Yeah, well, like I said, you're the one ignoring the details of our origin, which is, build a better mousetrap. That's all it's about. Build a better calorie stealer, okay, a calorie taker, okay, and that's what nature's about. And that's our origin. And then also the dilemma of our human nature, which is a bunch of imposed desire, addictions that are imposed by our nature. We got to eat, we got to drink, we got to sleep, we got to do the sex thing, we got to do all these different little things because these desires well up inside of us, whether we like it or not. This need for comfort, and there's always something to eat at that comfort, and you know it, and you know even in your dreamland of a better human society that there's still going to be a problem because we're not made to be happy and comfortable. We're made to keep pushing, to keep moving forward, to keep smashing the spokes on our little hamster wheel. And you haven't dealt with that fact, that detail. You will keep ignoring that detail of our psychology and the fact that it creates a dilemma for you life supporters, your life defenders.
It's like I'm always looking for people. Human beings are great approximators, and so we always are pretty good at looking at reasons and ways to approximate, to ignore.
Yeah, to ignore would be the key word. To ignore the reality and pretend that their God is going to come save the day, or Underdog, or Mighty Mouse, or Batman, or Superman. We love to fantasize about the big finish, about the happily ever after. There is no happily ever after. Okay, there's you're going to probably likely get thoroughly fucked. Okay, life is going to bust some vessel in your brain or do some other kind of fucktarded fucking shit to you, and it's not going to be fun at all. And that's what we get. That's if we're lucky. We might get out of here with only a few days of horror. That's if you're lucky.
Details, but it gets to be a problem because sometimes you want to get a little sophisticated. You don't want to ignore the details so much. So I'm always looking for people ignoring details.
Yeah, right. And so you're making this accusation to the people who have gone to tedious lengths to explain biology and psychology to you. And you're the one who have made no counter argument to those points. You have made no counter argument to our bastard origins. You've made no counter argument to the fact that addiction is desire. That's what desire is made out of. It's an addiction. It is arbitrary and fundamentally meaningless. It's an excuse to chase. It's not a reason. It's not rational. Okay? It's an excuse.
They have to ignore. And excuses that they have. That's what antinatalism is. It's like we talk about a few super bad examples. So
yeah, a few. See, there's just a tiny bit of life is that carnage thing. A tiny bit of life is the consumption. You know, yeah, it's only a tiny bit of life. No, it's the nature of it. And it's just bullshit to sit there and argue that most of life is some wonderful little happy balloon dance, and it's only this little tiny piece of life that's crud, a little nasty, gnarly pit. And regardless, the point is the balloon dance is completely unnecessary. If you don't create the addiction to it, the taste for it, the hunger, then you don't need to feed it.
Bad go, we just shouldn't be born, and then suddenly we don't have to solve all those problems. Isn't that lucky?
Yeah, solve all those problems that really can't, as a practical matter, be solved. Number one, with we have unsustainable resource utilization, and you account for none of that. You have no rational plan to fix that problem. More people, you say no problem. No problem, no problem. That's all you keep saying is no problem. It's a big, huge problem, and it's a problem nowhere have human beings shown any capacity to deal with, any capacity to sacrifice any part of their world for a future world. That just doesn't exist in the examples that can be provided of what human beings do. So, you know, yeah, until global warming is here, then they will deal with the problem when the problem is here. They won't deal with the problem before it gets here. And the problems we're heading for are brick wall problems. You know, we got to get weight out of the human race before we hit that brick wall. If we're light enough, we can do something with it. But if we're not, it's going to be a mess. And it's not going to be a mess like, oh yeah, it's all over with, nice, quick, and clean. No, it'll be a mess in that it'll be the worst possible scenario of let's maximize the suffering and minimize the comfort. That's the world we're heading for, because people won't be responsible. They just keep saying I'm allowed to be a reckless motherfucker and to behave on my desires and act on my desires and not have to account for the implications. And the implication of this desire to keep procreating you know, without any kind of rational limitation is disaster.
Fortunate, you know. And Gary's the most annoying because he's like, well, I know we won't get people that sterilize and that make some conscientious of the issues. It's like, no, it doesn't. You're distracting from real issues. You're talking about how people couldn't exist when you really think they ought to get clean food and water.
Yeah, no, I think they should, but the point is they're not going to. The easiest way to solve the problem is to reduce the population, because that's the thing that's making it all unsustainable and not possible to fix it. All right, so that's the number one simplest cure for the problem, is to get rid of the sloppiness that the overpopulation, the pressure it puts on the system. And even if you do that, though, you're still not going to solve the fundamental problem. Food and water is not all that human beings need, and food and water for human beings will not fix what's going on in nature. So this doesn't go anywhere to solve the big problem, which is there's a huge amount of misery being endured, and this animal kind, this life thing, is not accomplishing anything. It's not building anything. It's just running around and around and around in a wheel, satisfying an addiction that's been going on for 2 billion years. It's a 2 billion-year-old stupid addiction, and you just keep perpetuating it. Not for some reason, not because there's a rational imperative, but because there's a personal imperative. And that's not philosophy, and that's why you're intellectually dishonest. It's not skepticism either. It's just bullshit. It's just being a jackass human being.
A little bit off the real subject in that case.
Yeah, well, the real subject, again, is our origins, what the fuck we are, the mechanics of our functionality, and the fact that you can't turn it into anything. You can't, there's ultimately no need for the need we create. That's a fact. Our need serves no need. It doesn't need to exist. And that's a fact. And the fact is that makes it impossible for any satisfaction to compensate for the inevitable waste that's going to be part of this getting what you want bullshit.
You know, and plus this group, I mean, it's so emotional. Anytime it's all, like I said before, you know, you're never having to go to the psychoanalysis with any of these conversations you take on long enough. But it's just such an emotional issue that you see on display just some of the most ridiculous things, you know, that you have not answered or addressed. Look, it's just ridiculous to me because
yeah, right, exactly. If people throw the thought experiment, you will constantly break the rules of the thought experiment because you will not be confined by these realities. The reality that DNA is not a benevolent mechanism, that we are just acquiring tools that allow us to steal energy from other organisms. That's the mechanism. It's who's got the biggest razor, the sharpest, biggest razor blade. It's what it comes down to. This is a Nightmare on Elm Street scenario. You know, if nature could have built them, we would have steel claws.
when I'm arguing with people, I start to memorize their position, like as a skeptic would, where you could write it down and the other person would go, oh yeah, that's right, good, well put, that's what I would, that's maybe not quite my words, but more or less right. I memorize the other positions. I know Gary's position on this. I know the...
Yeah, and I know your position. It's cliche, okay? You've just accepted some old dogma that says life makes sense. Life is purposeful. Why? Because you desire, okay? So yeah, it must make sense because I desire and I want to get to tomorrow so I can get the stuff I want, okay? Even though my want is completely arbitrary, erroneous, and, mechanically produced by a biological mechanism that has no integrity, yeah, I'll validate all that because I have this feeling of want. And that's all I need. That's philosophically adequate to answer the question of, yes, that's an accomplishment. There's accomplishment in satisfying the want. That's not an accomplishment by a rational standard.
Places where we have roadblocks that keep us from agreeing. And who cares? I don't really... It's not a big goal of mine to make sure we agree in the end.
Yeah, right. And so that's more reason why you don't understand the other side. It's because, yes, you see it as, number one, it's not a real threat. So your side wins. And, yeah, you just don't feel, you don't see the horror of it. The horror. And so it's just, yeah, who cares for you? But for the others, from our perspective, from my perspective, yeah, if you saw the red numbers as I see the red numbers, and I'm only seeing a piece of them. Like I said, I can't even contemplate 2 billion years of this crap. And, yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, just it's stunning, even just glimpsing at it, even opening my brain to take a glimpse at those 2 billion years is stunning. So yeah, obviously I would have more emotional investment.
I just like to find out, well, do we really disagree here or there or the other place? Where are the things? And, Gary has the gall to question my integrity as if I haven't answered these things. And it's like, dude, I could answer it again.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, really great. Yeah, dude, why don't you do that, dude? Okay, dude? Yeah, do me the favor, dude. Yeah, dude, yeah, let's explain it again to me, how the DNA is a benevolent instrument, an intelligent instrument, something other than an instrument that builds machines that steal calories from other sentient instruments. Explain it to me. Explain what you're going to accomplish, satisfying your arbitrary and erroneous and silly fucking desires. And every fucking one of them is silly and personal, and it doesn't do a goddamn thing to compensate for the incessant misery that's being endured, so you can have your little adventure.
Yeah, but if you're not going to notice it, it's been answered.
Yeah, well, whatever. Yeah, you didn't answer it in this video. Now, you haven't answered to, again, either how there's any distinction between what you people call desire and addiction. What's the distinction? It's the same thing, same difference. You're just satisfying addictions built into you, and you're justifying them, rationalizing them, and that's all. You're just saying, well, they exist, so they must be valid. The end of the conversation. And that's not the end. That's the beginning of the conversation. So anyway, just go briefly to this this Plum guy, Neil Plum. So I don't really care for that name much. Somewhere around here he's talking a little bit about biology.
It seems to be a fundamental of natural selection. In fact, nothing is more fundamental in terms of natural selection than actually selecting for reproducibility or a propensity to reproduce.
Yeah, well, see, he just says these words over and over, and yeah, that's important, but it's got to be within a container, within a confinement. You can look at things like funguses, right? They could cover the earth, and why don't they? Because they reproduce to their advantage, to their survivability, and their survivability requires them to control the reproduction, not to over-reproduce, because if they over-reproduce, they become food, and they don't want to be food. Food is not a good thing to be. But there's other examples. So there's a control mechanism. You can't over-consume and over-reproduce and survive. These are two necessary functions, but they aren't the purpose of existence. The purpose is to consume and reproduce in balance to the environment that you're attempting to exploit. And if you do too little or too much, you're going to fail. So it's not just about reproducing. It's reproducing in that context. It's reproducing the right amount, the right way. And it's more about acquiring tools that allow you to exploit the environment and be able to control the environment. So you can do it in moderation. So you can consume without consuming your future out of a possibility of existence. Yeah, so you don't create extinctions, and so you don't do all this other stuff that will inevitably make your world unlivable. You can't turn your world into a desert and survive. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'm just qualifying what you were saying and just putting a little refinement on it because it's a little too simple. But yes, I agree with the rest where you say, yes, life doesn't have a purpose, and I think that's sort of important. Okay, I mean, you spent the second half of the video just explaining why God is kind of silly. But the more important subject is we're kind of silly, okay, in the sense that well, if you don't believe in God and you understand the truth, it has an implication. You can't just pretend it doesn't matter. We can just keep behaving like Christians even though we know there's no God. No, we have to change our behavior. We have to change our psychology because we don't have the excuse anymore of saying God did it. A dumb molecule did it. We're just, yeah, we're winners of a very bad bacteria race. You know, we're the fastest, bestest bacteria, but not much else. And that has a consequence. We have to account for it. So anyway, Conference Board also did a video, but he didn't really add much to the subject, I don't think. Talked about the chicken in the road, and then he did this stupid Aristotle thing again. First cause, last cause, middle cause. Who cares about this cause crap? The point is efficiency. At what efficiency are we crossing the road? Purpose isn't just about having a personal mission. And if that's all it's about, then yeah, it's a useless word. We have to have another word for things that are meaningful and that are productive. Maybe that's the word to use. Okay, so instead of purpose, we'll use the word productive. All right, and so now there has to be a productive reason why something crosses the road. It has to productively accomplish something in crossing the road. Purpose just isn't enough. The final cause has got to be a justifiable adventure. The final cause has got to justify the result, the consequence. Yeah. That's sort of what intelligence demands, is that we account. We do the math and account and show how it was worth doing. Yeah, worth it. That's what has to be explained. The worth of crossing the road.